Guys, we're in some serious trouble. Gaming has been getting more expensive by the year, but right now it's about to get more expensive by the day. It already has. The same components that I have in my PC right now cost twice as much as they did just 2 years ago. RAM just rose by 200% in just the last 2 months. And I know some people are going to look at this and say, oh, well, this is a PC problem. No, all these different components, they're used in just about everything. Handhelds, consoles, whatever else. Everything is going to get dragged up with all of this. What's happening right now is that AI is taking over the world. Who would have guessed it? And these data centers are doing everything they can to be able to keep up with this AI gold rush because everybody wants a piece of that money. And that's pushed these guys to raid the consumer market for products, buying up everything off the shelves before we even have a chance to get our hands on it, causing a lot of scarcity and making prices skyrocket with no end in sight. The part that really bothers me with all of this is just how obvious this play is. These guys are just getting way too sloppy for me. It's starting to aggravate me at this point. Like, if you're going to be a scammer, you got to try to hide it a little bit. But these guys don't even want to bother hiding it anymore. They're not trying to do anything to fix any of these issues. They're not scrambling to fix any of these supply issues. Instead, well, they're milking it. They're keeping their production tight. They're raising the prices, and they're using AI as the best excuse possible for them to just continue to take advantage of regular people, to squeeze you harder than they ever have before. And they're doing it all with governments backing them. They're going to drag this out as long as they possibly can because every single month that they keep these prices higher, they're just going to continue to rake in record profits. So today what I want to do is I want to talk about those insanely high prices and who's causing them. I want to talk about how I think the games industry is using this moment to be able to manipulate us and how I think this entire thing might backfire on them in the most glorious of ways. This video is sponsored by Displate, and right now they are running their biggest sale of the year. From now until the end of their campaign, you can get up to 46% off site-wide using my code LEGENDARY at checkout. 1 to 2 metal posters for 37% off, 3 to 4 for 43, 5 or more at 46. The full breakdown is going to be in the pinned comment and on the on-screen banners, but this is the best deal that you're going to see all year. Displate makes high-quality metal posters that mount magnetically, no tools, no frames, and no wall damage. You just stick a magnet to the wall, snap the poster on, it only takes seconds, and these guys have over 1 million designs to be able to choose from. Games, anime, movies, fantasy, tech, you name it. And they're still running their officially licensed Path of Exile 2 collection. I definitely checked that out. I got a full set that was sent over to me, and every single one of these looks incredible in person. Now, if you're looking for something a little bit more personal, check out their custom displays. You can upload your own images, photos, arts, memes, whatever you want, maybe a family portrait, and turn it into a gift-worthy metal print just in time for the holidays. Use code LEGENDARY at checkout, hit the link in the description, and take advantage of this year's biggest sale. We have talked a lot about prices on this channel, and we are going to continue to talk about prices on this channel because if there is one thing that I actually want to bring to this space, it is awareness. Most people feel helpless when they see these prices spike. They feel like they're being pushed out of their own hobby, like decisions are being made for them by people who don't even care about games in the first place. But the more that you guys understand what's happening, the easier it is to see the pattern. And guys, navigating what's coming next is going to get very hard, very fast. After the reveal of the Steam Machine, the first thing I saw was everyone arguing about the price. A lot of people were convinced that it needed to be $500 or $700 at max and that Valve should subsidize it to bring in more users. A whole different topic for another video because Steam does not need a loss leader to get more people through the door. But I took the time to actually dig into the potential hardware costs and ended up chiming in on Twitter saying that Valve isn't posting the price because they're hoping that things change. The AI bubble has pushed RAM to obscene levels, almost 200% this year. People are saying it should be $500. That's the price of RAM alone. Now, this is a bit hyperbolic. Sure, I was using the highest end hardware prices, but the more that I researched this trend, the darker the picture became, not just for Valve's console, but just for gaming as a whole. Right now, we're seeing hardware prices skyrocket across the board. All of it's tracing back to rapid data center expansion, a tidal wave of investment that's been poured into AI. According to Stanford, the U.S. has almost already spent $110 billion into private investments just in 2024. Global spending in generative AI is already up 600% between 2022 and 2024. And in 2025, that number is estimated to hit $1.5 trillion. With that kind of money flying around, AI firms are expanding their data centers and buying up existing hardware at a pace that consumers simply cannot compete with. That demand alone is enough to be able to drive these prices through the roof, and that's before you even factor in scarcity. I feel like I'm losing my mind. How many people have been ignoring this? We have seen companies and even the media try to blame these price hikes on tariffs. They've been doing it all year. We've covered it on this channel, but this isn't about trade policy. This is an increase. It's driven by raw demand for components, and everyone is just letting these hardware companies and these software companies spin whatever narrative they want, whatever narrative benefits them, with almost no pushback at all. How has nobody questioned this? These hardware companies are making record money off of the AI boom. They're selling hardware by the truckloads to these data center giants. They're soaking up billions of dollars in new investment, and they're still not expanding production for consumers. Instead, they're keeping their supply tight. They're raising prices. They're pouring all that new money into high bandwidth memory for AI. They could ease the pressure on the consumer market if they wanted to, but why would they do that when scarcity is letting them charge more? So squeeze the normal people while feeding the AI expansion that's only going to just make all of this so much worse. Gizmodo only recently picked up on this issue with an article titled "We're So Screwed," written by Kyle Barr, where Barr wrote, "We have been reporting about the spiking costs of RAM prices since October. Essentially, AI data centers have such a demand for memory that the prices of SSDs, DRAM, and HDDs are all ballooning in price. This is most keenly felt in the discrete PC RAM market. Corsair, one of the most popular brands for fast gaming-ready RAM sticks, told Gizmodo over email, our DRAM prices have increased in response to the severe supply shortage we're seeing across the industry." And it just keeps getting worse. A pack of 64GB DDR5 RAM from memory brand Crucial spiked from $150 to more than $400 in just 2 months, as evidenced by Amazon's price tracking site, Camel. Other low-end RAM sticks may see less of a bump, but users will inevitably find that the more RAM they want, the more it's going to cost. 4 sticks of 16GB DDR5 RAM from Corsair now sells for an astronomical $688. The same sticks in white demand $948, and they're not even the priciest RAM available. Guys, I want you to know that this is nothing like the crypto boom that we saw just a few years ago, where GPU prices were driven by a hype cycle that eventually died. AI is far more of a tangible technology. It is going to keep expanding, it's going to keep improving, and it's going to keep getting massive support from governments and corporations worldwide. Yes, there is a bubble forming, something similar to the dot-com era, where only a few players are actually going to end up owning the market. But even when that burst happens, the winners are just going to buy up the losers' data centers, and they're just going to continue to grow. Even if the expansion slows, that's still not going to fix anything for us. Keep in mind, after the crypto crash, GPU prices never really went back to normal. So hardware prices might come down eventually, sure, but they're never going to go back to what we used to pay. And this is not something that's just going to be limited to memory or GPUs. It's going to stretch across every piece of computer hardware, gaming PCs, handhelds, consoles, phones, everything. It makes getting into the hobby, upgrading your setup, or even just replacing something that breaks insanely expensive for everyday people. And I think that's exactly what these companies want right now. They want to squeeze customers harder than they ever have while raking in all of this investment and government backing, all to feed these business-to-business sales while the rest of us are going to deal with the fallout. At this rate, the hardware market is going to become completely inaccessible for most people. I've seen people talk about how the Steam machine needed to be $500 or maybe $700 at most, and these guys do not know how fast these prices are moving right now. The costs have ballooned so much that I could easily see every single major console that's coming in the next couple of years costing over $1,000 when they get revealed. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, that's not going to work. Nobody's going to buy hardware at these prices. And honestly, I think that's exactly what some of these companies are counting on. Nearly every major publisher in the gaming industry has gone all in on AI. EA just announced their partnership with Stability AI. Ubisoft has come back from their little media silence with some new AI deals and a push for AI teammates to replace making actual friends, which is incredibly bleak. But the clearest example here is Microsoft. They have poured billions of dollars into OpenAI and Anthropic, and they've committed another $80 billion to AI-enabled data centers. They are directly feeding into the same expansion that is driving hardware costs through the roof, the same expansion that they blamed on tariffs. It is a mutually beneficial relationship for them, not for us. Guys, this is the oldest trick in the corporate playbook. Create a problem and then sell the solution. If people can't afford gaming hardware anymore, Well, that becomes the perfect opening to be able to push cloud gaming, where you don't need to have a console or a PC, just a screen and a subscription. I talked about this in my video, This is the Last Warning, where I argued that Microsoft was pushing prices higher on purpose to be able to funnel players into cloud services where they already have been testing ads inside of their games. LD, you're crazy to think that. You're crazy to think that this is all connected. Guys, I do not think you understand how big the gaming industry actually is, okay? The US entertainment sector is the largest in the world, and gaming alone is 3 times. It makes 3 times as much as film and music combined. It's still young, it's still easy to manipulate, and there is a lot of money on the table for anybody that can wedge themselves in that ecosystem, especially if they can figure out how to force ads into whatever they want, whether we like it or not. So when I see this, I do not see a bunch of different trends happening all over the place. I see one big pattern. And I'm not saying that, oh, it's gaming that's helping to push this entire AI situation. No, it just so happens that, well, it's just falling in the perfect spot for these companies to be able to take advantage of it. And of course, they're going to be taking advantage of it. That's exactly what they're doing right now. It's where coincidence and opportunity have collided for these guys. And it just so happens that your money, your hobby, and your enjoyment are caught in the middle of it. Ironically, this is happening at the worst possible time for us because the console wars are effectively dead. Exclusivity is largely gone at this point outside of Nintendo, and these guys don't care about pushing their games to be able to make profit. They're trying to profit off of their services and off of their hardware now. All the stars are aligning in the wrong way for us at this moment. There is so much money hatting going on in AI right now. It's just absolutely crazy. Every single one of these companies has their hand in each other's pockets. If you see where some of this money goes, you see one company gives it to another, that company gives it to another, and then it goes straight back to the source. They're just circling all this wealth while squeezing us as hard as they possibly can, trying to make as much money off of us as they possibly can and force us into poverty is what it feels like. Probably actually exactly what, I don't want to talk about that right now. I mean, NVIDIA and Microsoft are the biggest perpetrators here, and both of these guys have cloud gaming services. They have no problem with hardware prices spiking and people not being able to get into higher end hardware. That sounds great to these guys, and they're going to continue to expand. They're going to continue to invest, and they're doing that off of the back of investments that they're getting from private and public investors and also from the government. It's insane. These guys effectively have price control over the hardware industry because, well, they can just order them out of stock. Well, right now, this is limited to higher end hardware. It's going to trickle down to lower end hardware. I've seen some people talk about, well, I'll just buy DDR4, it's cheaper. You're not the only one thinking that. And because this scarcity is largely inauthentic and inorganic and is being controlled, well, that means that they're just going to affect those markets regardless. And the same thing goes for console markets as well. They can use the exact same excuse. Well, because the data center expansion, sorry, the GPUs or the RAM or whatever else is too expensive for this console. It's going to have to be more expensive. They're going to push it there too. And the reason why is because these guys do not need hardware to be able to make money off you anymore. It's not necessary for them. They can farm the people who can afford it, and then they can push those who can't into subscription services and cloud services where they can feed you ads or you pay a monthly sub. Doesn't that just sound lovely? Now, I'm sure it sounds great to these guys. I'm sure they're all in on this idea. And if I was in one of those rooms, it would probably sound pretty good to me. But this entire thing is incredibly risky for them to do. Not because anybody's actually going to come in and try to interrupt it. That's not going to happen, at least not for a while. But they're under the assumption that customers are going to continue to chase them wherever they go. We're chasing the highest end hardware, the highest end games, but that's not necessarily what's been happening. See, the question they need to be asking themselves is what happens when players go in a different direction entirely? Because that's exactly what's happening right now. Not to interrupt the flow of this video, but man, it really sucks that we even have to be talking about any of this. We should be celebrating what this industry is capable of, especially with the Game Awards right around the corner. I've been eyeing a second playthrough of Expedition 33, and every time I think about that game, how confidently it ignored all of the noise, how it cuts through everything all of this industry's nonsense. It reminds me of how things could be, how things should be, and it also reminds me of how disgusting these executives are who want to drag this hobby into the mud for profit. I genuinely believe that these major hardware and software companies think raising the price floor is going to guarantee them victory. If people can't afford new hardware, they're just going to default to cloud or whatever subscription service pipeline that they want to shove us into. And once players are trapped in those ecosystems, well, then these companies have full control. They can raise the prices, they can tier their access, they can lock features behind a monthly fee, they can do whatever they want. They can even slide ads in with almost no friction. That is the future that these AAA publishers want. Now, the problem for them is that I don't think this plan is actually going to work in the real world. It's built on the assumption that everybody needs the highest end experience, that we are all desperate for cutting edge AAA titles and will follow the industry wherever it tries to push us. But that ignores the biggest risk in their entire strategy, one that is already happening right now. What if people don't buy in? What if players stop chasing high end entirely? What if they split into a different direction, a shift that ends up starving AAA while fueling the rise of studios who can thrive without expensive hardware? Now, I'm going to give you guys two business terms: demand destruction and market bifurcation. Demand destruction is when prices stay so high for so long that people just stop buying a product altogether. Market bifurcation is when a market splits into two groups that behave completely differently. The haves and have-nots in this case, if you will. And we're seeing both of these happen in the gaming industry right now, even if the shift has been relatively slow. Just take a look at Steam's latest hardware survey. NVIDIA's brand new 50 series GPUs, they're not even in the top 10. They're not even in the top 15. The 5070 sits at number 16. The 5060 is 22nd. And all their other high-end cards, they might as well not even exist at all. The top 5 are dominated by lower-end 30 and 40 series cards, and the GTX 1650, a 6-year-old GPU, is still holding strong. People are not upgrading, and when they do, they're choosing the cheapest, most sensible option they can, either because of the cost or because they don't see any reason to chase higher-end hardware anymore. I think that this industry has completely misread this. I think that they're looking at these numbers and assuming that people want the highest-end hardware but simply can't afford it. But that doesn't really track with reality. The Switch 2 broke US console sales records by selling over 2.4 million units in only 3 months. And nobody believes that that's cutting-edge hardware. People bought it because they wanted the games, not the specs. And beyond that, these companies are operating under the idea that players want to upgrade just to be able to play the latest AAA releases. But why would anybody want to do that anymore? Why would we want to spend thousands of dollars on a new rig or a console when these games come out broken day one? Borderlands 4 is still a performance nightmare with the developers issuing apology after apology. Monster Hunter Wilds tanked all of its momentum and its reputation because it couldn't run properly either. These are two of the biggest AAA releases this year, and both of them are defined by the same problems. There has been a sharp decline in sales across the board for AAA because people just aren't impressed anymore. And that's the part that these companies don't really seem to understand, is that when your games don't justify the hardware stops selling. When the hardware stops selling, the high-end market freezes, and AAA is going to be the first thing to suffocate. What I think is happening right now, and it's only going to get worse for the AAA industry, is that with these rising hardware prices, especially if they bleed into the next generation of consoles, it's going to effectively put a stop to high-end gaming entirely. They are building a price wall that people cannot climb, and in doing so, they're going to destroy their own demand. Players do not trust AAA enough to be able to justify a $70 game, let alone a $1,000 console or a $4,000 PC upgrade. And if they're not buying the hardware or the games, well, why would we be interested in the services that are tied to them? What is the point of cloud gaming or subscriptions if the games on those services aren't worth our time? All that I think is actually going to happen is that this market is going to split. They're going to accidentally fuel the rise of AAA even further, which honestly is this industry in its purest form. Smaller teams, lower budgets, higher creativity, more original ideas, and no need to chase higher-end hardware. These games are targeting mid-range or even older systems by design. And when you look at what people are actually playing this year, Expedition 33, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Escape from Duck-Off, Mega Bonk, Ball Pit, even Stellar Blade and Arc Raiders don't need a 5090 to run well. People can get everything they want without buying any of this high-end hardware at all. The funny thing is, when you zoom out on all this, there really is only two futures that are ahead of us right now. One is the one that the corporations want, and the one is the one, well, players are actually moving towards right now. The corporate one is pretty obvious: expensive hardware that nobody can buy. Cloud gaming is the affordable alternative. Subscriptions stacked on top of subscriptions. Ads baked straight into the experience. A world where every part of gaming is metered, tracked, monetized, and controlled. That is the endpoint that these guys have been building towards for years. Because in that future, they own everything, we own nothing. But there's been another future that's been forming underneath their feet this entire time. And it's one that these guys just haven't planned for. It's a future built by AA studios and mid-tier teams that have been making incredible games that run on any hardware that people actually own. A future where the most popular game doesn't require a $4,000 rig or a $1,000 console. A future where creativity outperforms fidelity, where studios that are willing to take a risk end up defining the industry more than the ones that are burning $500 million on another forgettable game. And I really think that this entire thing should terrify these AAA publishers. They should not be trying to lean into it. If these players stop upgrading, if they stop buying into high end, then AAA is the one that becomes an endangered species. The budgets stop making sense, the audiences shrink, and the only people that are going to be left thriving are the teams that never needed cutting edge hardware to begin with. Because at the end of the day, we're the ones that decide where this industry goes. And if the industry starts building a future that we don't want, well, we simply just walk away. I have a strong feeling that outside of Grand Theft Auto 6, if it actually releases, next year is probably going to play out just the same as this year. There's just not going to be a lot of winners in AAA. I mean, more than half of the nominees for Game of the Year this year were all independent or indie studios. And that's not just, oh, these are just for the awards. No, these are also some of the most beloved games by players and also some of the highest selling games that we've seen all year. And that's going to leave these guys with not a lot of other options. I know some people are probably going to say, oh, well, then they'll just start making AA games themselves. They'll just stuff these services with AA and they'll stuff them with indie games, but that really doesn't make a lot of sense. What is the point of your subscription service or your cloud service if, one, I have the hardware, so I can play those games regardless anyway, and two, those games are cheap to begin with. Why would I want to pay $30 a month plus to be able to play games that I could buy for $15 to $5 in some cases? Doesn't make any sense. I mean, Game Pass, I know right now is about $30. I can guarantee you it's probably going to climb to $35 or even $45 next year. Who knows how that's going to go. And that's more than most people spend on video games in a month. It just doesn't make any sense. Nobody needs it. I don't need it. I can tell you that right now. This is an incredibly dangerous path for the games industry to be following right now. And it's also something that they really shouldn't be supporting. I just don't see a lot of movement in hardware. And helping to push those prices even higher, you're going to starve yourself, because I just don't see a lot of people that are chasing some of these new releases. Sure, we've seen some movement, we've seen some buzz, but I don't know if you guys have noticed this. With a lot of these AAA games, the minute that they come out, the hype around them dies like that. And you just stop hearing about them entirely. Battlefield 6, I think, is probably the only one that I could point to this year that has actually kind of survived for the most part, but Monster Hunter Wilds, that game just absolutely tanked after its first month. They haven't been able to sell, I don't even know if they've even sold another 1 million copies past the first 10 that they sold in that 1 month. That is crazy. That is not good, man. That is not good. And when we're starting to see equipment dive off of a cliff like this, you're going to have to come down to meet those players. And if you're not willing to do that, you're in a lot of trouble. I can tell you that right now. I'm curious to know what hardware you guys use. I want to know what people are actually using, because I can see a Steam survey, and I talk to people in our community Discord. If you guys don't engage in our community Discord, you should. It's a group of absolutely fantastic people, but most people there are on lower end hardware. A lot of people that I know outside of myself, the only reason why I have a rig as great as I have or as expensive as I have is because of all the work I do with editing and recording and all that stuff. Outside of that, I wouldn't use it. I wouldn't get it. Are you kidding me? I'd be playing on something else entirely. I'd probably still be playing on the 2080 or 3080 that I have behind me. But yeah, I'm really interested to see where all this stuff goes. The one thing that I find really interesting about this, if you're a AAA publisher or if you're just a bigger publisher in the games industry at all, I would be really interested to see how they feel about a company like Microsoft having the influence that they have right now, because they're making the industry incredibly uncomfortable for a lot of these other companies just as a byproduct of what they're doing on their AI side. All the investments that they're making, all the money that they're putting into all of these different data centers and things like that, the increasing of prices of hardware specifically pretty much across the board, that becomes a threat for a lot of these other companies. So I'm wondering what their perspective on this is. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Kick, Follow me on Twitter. And make sure you guys come back later this week. I think I have like 2 more videos that I have to do this week. This one just kind of popped out of nowhere, and I was like, I got to talk about this. But anyway, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Family, 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 family.